Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Aruba, which is part of the Netherlands. It's called the country of Aruba, and I'll tell you why during its history. Why it's referred to as a country. There goes my neighbor above me. Ignore that. Aruba is located technically in the Caribbean, but it's in like the most southerly part of it. Just a hop, skip, and a jump that way is Venezuela. It's very, very close to South America. Aruba is part of the ABC islands of the Netherlands. A being for Aruba, B is for, I wonder if I can get this in frame, Bonaire, which is nearby. And then over here you can see this is Curaçao. A, B, C. So Aruba is the A in the ABC. You can see the capital here is Oranjestad. Oranjestad. I'm not sure. I'm not great at Dutch. And as you can see, it's a nice little chunk of island here. Nothing too complex. The center is pretty windswept and hilly. Not a lot of trees. There were trees here, they were all chopped down. But the coastline is pretty rocky. You can see the coral along here. But there are also some absolutely gorgeous beaches on here, the most famous being Eagle Beach. I heard, I should say, in a video that it was rated the most beautiful beach in the Caribbean, which is like a lot. There's a lot of beautiful beaches in the Caribbean, so that tells you the quality here of the beaches. Absolutely gorgeous. I think that's about it for geography, to be honest. It's flat and windy in here, rocky along the coasts. That's about it. But let me go into the history of Aruba because it's very fascinating. I bet you're wondering how this island is part of the Netherlands. Way, way, way far away from the Netherlands. How did that happen? But if we go back, we're going way before the Dutch even knew about this place. There were some interesting civilizations that lived on the ABC Islands, including Aruba, way back from probably about 2000 BCE up until 1000 BCE. There was a culture that we don't know much about. We found some, archaeological evidence from them that can tell us a bit about their lifestyle, but we don't know much about them. We assume that they were chased off the island eventually by other peoples. But one group came to settle here around the year 1500, and they were the Coquetillo. The Coquetillo were originally from the Amazon basin. They came up through Venezuela and discovered the islands here and settled on them, creating their own little civilization and way of life. But that would change not long after that, because the Spanish arrived with quickness around that, right? And the Spanish were very interested in the northern coast of South America. A lot happening up there in Venezuela and Colombia. So they took a lot of stock in the islands. And they saw these islands were populated with this indigenous group, and they slowly came through and started taking them and enslaving them and sending them off to their other areas that they were conquering to work as slaves. And you can imagine the people here fought back very bravely, very valiantly, but pretty soon the population of Aruba would become zero. Some Spanish would try to settle here. There were some attempts to mine gold here. They weren't very successful. There were some attempts at ranching here. Also not very successful, but it did lead to a population of wild horses and wild donkeys just roaming around, doing their own thing. And the Spanish nicknamed, I believe it was Aruba and Bonaire, the useless islands. They did not know what to do with these islands. They did not recommend settling on them because there's not much here. And they just owned it but didn't touch it. So that left the door open for someone else to come in and start fiddling around in the islands, and those people were the Dutch. The Dutch were looking for salt pans for their very lucrative salt trade. And they've definitely found some on Bonaire. They found a bit on Curacao, and they found a little bit on Aruba. So since the Spanish didn't really want these islands anyway, they just started to come in and settle and build towns along the coast until the Dutch West India Company would officially take over the islands from Spain in 1636. And they found a dilemma here with Aruba because Curacao is a big island with all kinds of resources. Bonaire had the salt they were looking for. Aruba didn't really have nothing. It was the Hufflepuff of the islands, right? They're just kind of there. So they did some horse breeding and some ranching, but there wasn't really much to do here. So in the 19th century, they started to process phosphate, and they started to grow aloe, which I love aloe. Almost all my skin products have aloe in it. My sister's allergic to aloe also. Isn't that interesting? We both have very strange allergies. But still a big industry on Aruba today. We'll take a look at it on Google Earth. But in the 20th century, they started to build oil refineries here, since the waters here between Aruba and Venezuela are very, very rich in oil, which Venezuela still greatly profits off of to this day. So they built refineries here to process that oil, and it made a ton of money. Apparently is one of the largest oil refineries in the world. But the island would wind up closing that refinery by 1985. Kind of for a lot of complicated reasons. There were some World War II reasons, and very sketchy politics happening since, the Netherlands was taken over by Nazi Germany. Desperately trying to control the values of this island became a big issue. And I think the people were just like, this is a double-edged sword, pretty much. We could keep this and continue to profit off of destroying the environment, or we could get rid of it and have our economy collapse. So what do we do? Well, for starters, there was a big independence movement in the 1950s after World War II. And it really reached a peak in the 1970s. It was led by a man whose name I might mispronounce. It's Petico Kroos. And he petitioned, the Dutch government for a long time for independence for Aruba. And it was really coming along in the 1980s. In 1985, they drafted their own constitution, all prepared to become its own country. And I believe this is when Aruba became the country of Aruba. They were prepping for independence. Sadly, though, Kroos would die in a car accident in 1986. He would never get to see his dream come true. But even then, I think after he was gone, it kind of fizzled out, right? The independence was postponed in 1990 indefinitely, and by 1995, they just rescinded it completely. They said, you know what? We're good. We don't really need to be an independent country anymore. So, Aruba does have its own kind of self-rule in a way, but it is still part of the Netherlands. And today, since they don't have the oil refineries anymore, they make most of their money off of tourism, off of the gorgeous beaches. They've got a big dock here in Oranjestad for cruise ships. And there's lots of fun touristy things to see around the island. So why don't I grab my tablet and I'll show you some of them. Let's go. Alrighty, here's Aruba. First things first, I'm going to zoom out because the Caribbean gets a little tricky with its territories, which are all very small. I will show you exactly where we are in the world. There's Aruba. You can see here is Curacao and Bonaire. A, B, C. You can see just how close we are here to Venezuela too, right? Just right over there. In the grand scheme of things, here's the Caribbean. Aruba's way down here in the south, right? You think Caribbean, you think, well, you know, the Bahamas and Cuba, there's Puerto Rico, all of these islands over here. Aruba's way over here. So let's start off in Oranjestad and see some of the really beautiful Dutch architecture here. It's a big dock. Look at this. Isn't that gorgeous? With this facade that you really see, and that part of Europe, you know. Big cruise ship there. And these blue horses are around the city to kind of commemorate its horsey history. Little tramp there. It's a big, beautiful, bustling port town. I can't zoom in, but I wonder if that's crows. The horses, right? Pretty typical around the town. So yes, beautiful little capital city there. We can head up. I want to show you the beach. Just cruising and snorkeling. Oh, I wonder if there's a shipwreck. Hold on, I got distracted. Babu shipwreck. Oh my goodness, look how rusty it is. But of course, it's like a scuba diver's paradise underneath, right? That pelican. Really cool underneath. I guess we're not looking at the beach because I can't find it. There's Palm Beach. Here is a bird sanctuary. Let's start here. One of the two sanctuaries I'm going to show you today. This big wetland area, and look, they've got a windmill there. Just like in the mainland, right? Here's some good beach pictures, even though that's not the sanctuary. Love the windmills. We are technically in the Netherlands. Pretty butterflies there, having a munch on some citrus. There's a bird. Looks like an egret. There's some birds. They look like ducks. Little speckled ducks. They are. Beautiful little water birds. Enjoying the water here. They can safely live and breed and do their little bird things here. Alright, let's check out the Aloe Factory Museum and Store. Assuming we can maybe see some aloe plants. And I'll show you pictures, but I assume they're all out here. Aloe, by the way, very good for your skin. You should at least have a tub of just pure aloe. Just rub it on whatever part of your skin you need aloe rubbed on, like twice a week. Look how neat that is. A little recycling project there. So good for your skin. And it's great because, like, except if you're my sister, any skin tone. It could be greasy, oily, dry. It doesn't matter. Aloe is great for your skin. Highly, highly recommend. Just buy a little tub of aloe at any natural store. Or maybe you can come here and buy some locally grown aloe. How cool is that? And then see a museum of how these aloe plants were brought here and how they're still cultivated to this day here on Aruba, Royal Aruba Aloe. It's the first quarter. The aloe is the first quarter of the Aruban shield. In the first quarter, is the symbol of our first source of welfare. You can see right there. Very cool. Alright, next we're going to look at my favorite part of the island, the donkey sanctuary. Because as you remember, lots of wild, not really many wild horses anymore, because a lot of them were captured and sold to parts of the Caribbean. But wild donkeys are still around. So here's a sanctuary to help out these little goobers. Make sure that they're living happy lives here on the island. And you can come here, oh, peacocks too. And you can pet them and you can feed them and just be around all these donkeys. And just have a good donkey time here on Aruba. There's a rooster. It's not a donkey. That's a cat. Also not a donkey. But maybe here everything is a donkey. Welcome to our donkey sanctuary. The little friends painted on there. There's the cat. It's like a little bodega cat here at the donkey sanctuary. Every day you are welcome from 9 to 4. Good to know. We are thrilled that you are here. All the donkey rules to make sure that everyone has a good time. You and the donkeys. Another big tourist site is the Natural Bridge. Right here. Because it is, as you can imagine, a natural bridge. Check it out. There used to be 2 in this area, apparently, but one was destroyed during Hurricane Katrina. I wonder if it was there. But you can still come and enjoy this bridge. It is still here. Don't go beyond this point. Big waves. So here's what I was talking about, that kind of very rocky coastline, right? It's not entirely beaches. And you can see some good shots of kind of the interior here. Not very tree-filled, right? I imagine the many different peoples that settled here for the many centuries just chopped down all the trees. And now it's quite dry and barren. You can do lots of ATV tours. The interior here. National Park. Oh, no pictures. I'm sure it's underwater anyway. And let's see. I'm going to show you one more thing, but I'm trying to think of what it should be. Maybe the cave? Don't remember if I looked at this slideshow. Oh, I did, yes. This is really cool. A little walk-through cave here you can experience. It's a little scary, but also really beautiful, right? These incredible formations, the beautiful water. Some natural caves here. Very cool. Some cacti. All the rules you have to follow so you stay safe in the caves. Oh, do you see that artwork there? That's neat. So yeah, there are lots of little places to explore here on Aruba. A little friend there. They're all very neat. Let's look at these rock formations. So I really encourage you to play around in Aruba yourself on Google Earth. Let me know if you find anything really cool. There are lots of other little farms and little touristy places to explore here. Oh, the puppies. But I'm going to end it here for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing, as this is an ongoing series. Next, we're going to be going to India. But we're going to a part of India you probably don't know much about, because it's not really the place like when you think India, you know? Look at this. You wouldn't really think of a place like this. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. It's a tour on a pirate ship. How fun is that? I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a good